There are a variety of factors that contribute to an area's infant mortality rate. A new summit hopes to educate people in our area about those factors and how to improve infant mortality rates for our region. That's next on WNIN Newsmakers. The Vanderburgh County Health Department organized a summit about local infant mortality rates. Here to discuss the issue and talk about the need for a summit is Lynn Hurd, Director of Clinic and Outreach for the Health Department. Thank you so much for being here, Lynn.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us, I know we're smiling, but this really is a very serious topic and it really is a problem in our area. So let's talk a little bit more about the statistics in our area and kind of bring that to bear on what an issue it is here.
So historically, Vanderburgh County has not done extremely well in regards to our infant mortality, which really is the death of an infant before their first birthday. So any baby that's born that has signs of life, that's breathing, whether they live for a minute or whether they live until their first birthday, is counted in those numbers. And we measure that kind of by 1,000 live births. So the rate can be, in 2020 was 11.4 per 1,000 live births. Every year in Vanderburgh County, we have about 2,100 births. That's kind of been the going rate for the last couple years. Now, when we say Vanderburgh County, that doesn't mean that if you live in Vanderburgh County and you deliver out at the Women's Hospital in Warwick County, that it counts for Warwick County. So it's wherever mom's home address is. And that is who counts for Vanderburgh County. Okay. So like I said, our rates were really high. They did drop in 2021, but we still see this huge disparity. And we never count just 1 year, because 1 year you're gonna have a really high year, 1 year you're gonna, we dropped to 5.3 per 1,000 live births in 2021. But the concerning thing is we still had a Black infant mortality rate of 17.
Oh, no.
So we know that our Black women are suffering more loss by far than our white women. And at this point, our Hispanic rate kind of started very high early in my career at the health department, but that has dropped down much lower than the Black infant mortality rate, and has kind of leveled out just a little above the white infant mortality rate. So we know, while we have programs like Pre to 3 and our fetal infant mortality groups at the health department, we know that we need more. It's not just the health department, it's not just the health systems. It's going to take big business, it's going to take community leaders that are very vested in this, and how we can change as a community to address the needs of our most vulnerable populations.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more. We'll dig into that in a few more minutes. But let's talk also how Vanderburgh County stacks up regionally. How do we compare to some of our other community or county partners around us? And then how do we stack up nationally?
So it's really hard to compare Evansville. While we fit in a southwestern Indiana group and we're kind of measured in that area, the other areas of southwestern Indiana help us lower our rates, because there's not a whole lot of diversity in those other counties. Their vulnerable populations are a little bit different. Davies County in our area, they have their challenges with diverse populations, helping out in some of the plants. Same way with Du Bois County. But then they also have the Amish. So every community is a little bit different, and the struggles that they have and that they work on are a little bit different. But because we're more of an urban area, we do different from the rest of southwestern Indiana. So while the group southwestern Indiana does better than we do here in Vanderburgh County, Indiana as a whole does not do well when you compare to the rest of the states. In fact, there's only 7 states with the last CDC information that came out, with us being about 6.8 per 1,000 live births. We rank at the bottom. There's only 7 states that actually perform less than us. And then when you look at how the United States does compared to other industrialized or those that have standardized health care, that for the amount of money that we pay for health care, or as a community, as a nation, we don't serve where we should. Nationally, we have a infant mortality rate in between 5 and 6 per 1,000 live births, and you've got places in Europe that have an infant mortality rate of 4. So yeah, we've got work to do.
Sure. And when you say we rank at the bottom, I would imagine that the response is pretty universal. Why? Why would we rank at the bottom, and what are some of the factors that are going into this, and what can we do, or how can we start to change that trend?
Yeah, one of our struggles is Indiana as a whole does not pay or invest much into public health. Those programs that serve everyone and are most vulnerable. In fact, at one time, and it kind of goes back and forth, out of the 50 states, Indiana is in between 45th and 48th in public health spending. So it has not been a huge push by our legislators to really make sure that in the budget there is funding for programs for the most vulnerable.
So tell us about those programs and what more public health dollars would fund. What types of programs help address the huge issue in the Black community in terms of infant mortality, and what types of preventative things or interventions can funding like this help?
Well, and while it's the Black community, it's also our lowest socioeconomic, even when you look at the white and Hispanic and Black. So that is something we got to take into consideration. So we have a couple things at the health department, and again, we're not the answer to this. We need to have everybody on board, but we have our Pre to 3 program, which visits pregnant women in their home with community health workers that look like them, that also have nursing support, and also have social services as well. A client advocate that can help them navigate all the really difficult things around insurance and transportation and all the things that happen while building a strong family. And we follow those children until they're age 3. While we serve a little over 200 families, we know that there's so many more that we could serve, but we don't have the funding to serve more than that. We have had to really get creative with grant funding and everything to keep that going, because it's not like tax dollars do that, or any kind of funding that we're getting. We also do fetal infant mortality review, in which we look at each individual case of infant death. What could we do better as a community? We look at systems, health systems and social systems. How could we do better by those mothers? We also, smoking is still a huge issue in our community, which can lead to prematurity. About 14% of our delivering moms are still smoking.
Really?
Yeah. So again, leading to prematurity, which is our number 1 cause of infant death, is prematurity and low birth weight.
Well, you mentioned earlier we need big business to get involved, and you mentioned some other things that maybe people might not realize. I think when people think of infant mortality, they think it is purely a health issue. So where can big business and other community partners fit into this piece of the puzzle? So
again, I think a lot of people don't think, there's time off work when somebody loses an infant, or they're having pregnancy complications. that all that plays in. And then also during this time of grieving and there's so much that can impact business, that if we can make a healthier community and a healthier workforce, everyone benefits.
Right.
So getting those folks involved and seeing that, hey, we could make a healthier community and we'd have a healthier workforce. We know that folks that have private insurance have better outcomes than those that have Medicaid. It's just, it's obvious in the data that we collect. So the more folks that we can get on private insurance, the better.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more about this summit. What brought this about? What's the need for the summit? And what are you hoping to accomplish with the summit?
Again, just those same kind of things, not to get the traditional folks that are just from healthcare involved, to get people passionate that Vanderburgh County has the second highest Black infant mortality rate of any county in the state. To bring awareness to that's not our community. Right. Let's not be that community. Let's be the community that that takes care of our most vulnerable populations and does better. And we can't do it ourselves. There's no one agency. There's no one kind of business, the healthcare. We need everybody involved and be thinking outside the box, be getting everyone that has a vested interest a voice in what we can do better.
Well, and how can we advocate? Because you mentioned spending and public funding and things like that. So how can people get involved in advocating? We're in legislative session right now.
Right. And so call your legislator.
Right.
Tell them about it. And some of them are going to be there. Actually, the lieutenant governor is going to be there. We've had conversations with our local legislators, and there's a couple of them going to be there as well. It's been great to have conversations with them to bring them some of that awareness to them so they can advocate. But then again, anybody can advocate for more public health spending, and we'd love everyone to advocate when we're in session.
So how did you come about picking the people who are going to be involved in the summit and the keynote speaker? Tell us a little bit more about that planning.
So Dr. Jerome Adams is our keynote speaker, and I can't help smiling when I speak of him. He was our health commissioner for Indiana prior to being the Surgeon General.
Wow.
So even back when I first went to the health department and became the fetal, infant, and child fatality review coordinator, he sat in my office and really brought light to the disparities that were in the data, and kind of, I guess, made me passionate about this.
Sure.
And he's ongoing. This has been an ongoing thing. We've kept him up to date. He stayed in contact with a lot of the local health departments, even during his Surgeon General days. And we actually got an opportunity to see him in DC back several years ago. So stayed in contact with him. He has always been really invested in the Pre-to-3 program and very interested in that moving forward. When he took his new job at Purdue University, and the research team, we were doing some unique billing to support the program. He was very interested in that, and so he's had ongoing contact with us, and have known part of his team for a good while now, because they had worked at the Indiana Department of Health with us. So everything just kind of fell into place, and he knows the struggles we're up against, and he's ready to dig in and help as well.
So what can people expect from the summit? Are we going to hear a lot of data, a lot of discussion about solutions? How do you see this playing out?
So I think in the beginning it's just going to be more of an awareness and data, and and bringing some of the things to light. And then we will have ongoing strategic planning kind of sessions that will be led.
Wonderful. Well, you've given us a fabulous preview of this, and we're actually going to see some highlights since you've kind of teed this up for us. But if someone sees these highlights that we're going to show in a few moments, and they're interested in more information, how can they get in touch with you?
People can reach out to the health department, and one of us will get back. There will be plenty of next steps for people to get involved. But I think the easiest way is to go to your VCHD or your Vanderburgh County Health Department website. There is a way to send a message to us with their email address, and then we can get them involved.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Lynn. We appreciate it, and best of luck with the summit. The first local infant mortality summit was held on Friday, February 17th of this year. The event featured former Surgeon General Dr. Jerome Adams, Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch, Director of Perinatal Levels of Care for State of Indiana, Ashley Rainey, among others. Here are some of the highlights of that summit.
I'm so pleased to welcome everybody to the first Infant Mortality Summit in Southern Indiana. Our theme for this summit is called Call to Action, and we really want to raise the awareness of our infant mortality here in our city, county, and region, specifically our Black infant mortality.
The summit we're here to talk about today, that we'll learn from, does not help our quality of life. It does not. From 2011 to 2015, 180 infants died in Vanderburgh County. They were less than a year old. 180. That's when Dr. Spear and Joe and Lynn and the great team really went to work with other community leaders to figure out, okay, what's our stake in the ground here? What can we do as a community to make sure this stops? On your tables, you'll see a lot of information about pre to 3. That's the result of their great work. Where clients will get a weekly visit from a community health worker in their homes to talk about the basics of pregnancy and infant development up to age 3. My friends, that is saving lives. It's giving families a chance to really be vibrant like they've never had the opportunity before.
Maternal health and infant health is in a public crisis, right? We're having a discussion about something we never in our mind thought we would have to have. Babies are dying, mothers are dying, and to bring it home a little bit more, roughly 700 to 900 women die annually from childbirth. 3 in 5 of those pregnancy-related deaths are preventable. And to bring this home more, CDC says 84% of those deaths are preventable, okay? About 1 in 3 pregnancy-related deaths happen between that first year and that 1 week in first year of life. So it's really important that these individuals not only come into their prenatal care, but their postpartum care too, so that we can capture those individuals before they become one of our statistics. When doing this presentation, I had thought about a lot of different things. And this quote stood out to me. And it says, "To be pregnant is to be vitally alive, thoroughly woman, and distressingly inhabited. Soul and spirit are stretched, along with body, making pregnancy a time of transition, growth, and profounding beginnings." And that's absolutely true. But what happened when those same joy and admirations of I'm going to be a mother are clouded with but would I die? Will I be that individual that I've seen on the news when they're talking about maternal mortality? Will they listen to me? Those are often a lot of the emotions that as a Black woman, as a black teen, even if you are a teen pregnancy, invades your head, invades your space, and makes you fearful to come into the hospital. And we know, and I want to make this very clear, we understand not every provider is a horrible provider. We know that not everyone is out to be malicious. But unfortunately, it is the unbearing, uneasy data that is portrayed on the television, on the news channels, in your articles, day in and day out. So naturally, we become fearful, right? This is some additional data here. I know Lynn spoke earlier about where the U.S. rank when looking at maternal mortality and infant mortality. Well, I wanted to read this here. It says the median maternal mortality rate in selected developed countries is 4.45 out of every 100,000 births, okay? That is over 4 times as many women in the United States. Over 4 times. And to bring it home anymore, there it said black men in the U.S. were more than twice. Sorry to tell you guys, that's increased to 3 to 4 times now, more likely to die from childbirth. So it is having these deliberate meetings, conversations, and summits that are much needed to continue to change the trajectory of this horrific outcome. Some additional data I wanted to share is that non-Hispanic black women have the highest rates, 22 out of 25 severe morbidity. So if you don't know what morbidity is, those are those near misses, okay? So you think about pulmonary edema, cardiomyopathy, right? You think about blood clots. Those are considered morbidities. Those are long-term things that I may not have demise from it, but it impacts the care that I may seek in the future. It impacts the care that my child may seek in the future. Why? Because those are stories that are told over and over. And those stories, whether you want to believe it or not, impact the way that I may seek care. It may impact how often I'm actually going to trust what my provider is saying, because why? I know someone personally who went through it and they were telling you and you didn't do anything about it.
There are over 700 zip codes in the state of Indiana. I want you all to follow me through here. 700 different zip codes. Of the 500 babies who die every year, over half of them are in just 10 of those zip codes. So over 50% of the infant mortality is occurring in less than 2% of the zip codes in Indiana. Why does that matter? Well, it matters because we need to continue to be better at targeting our resources to the people and places that need it the most. Otherwise, and we got $13 million from the state for infant mortality when I was state health commissioner, and that sounds like a whole lot of money. You take 13 million and you divide it by 700 zip codes. All of a sudden, that 13 million doesn't go very far. But you take that 13 million and you give an equitable share, not an equal share, an equitable share to those highest risk zip codes, that 47713, and that's how you really start to change outcomes. And so that stood out to me. What also stood out to me is something you've heard about all day long, and that is the disparities. And it was highlighted by the doctor on the other panel. But it's easy to dismiss disparities as, that's just about income, and that's about education, and that's about things that we can't control or that are the result of people's own choices. Well, that's not exactly true. We know that a college-educated black woman is still 2 times as likely to die giving birth as a white woman who dropped out of high school. You heard Serena Williams mentioned. Beyonce almost died while giving birth. Allison Felix, Olympic athlete, almost died while giving birth. These are educated women. These are women with means. The gentleman who you heard earlier from Anthony Johnson, his wife, he's a friend of mine. He's been out to my office several times. They were affluent people at a really nice hospital. And so I think it's important that we have the courage to acknowledge that race and racism are important factors that we have to follow. And again, it's not that it's your fault for being black or brown or what have you, but we have to we have to understand that certain people have an inequitable opportunity to be healthy. And so that's what really stands out to me from my time and from those numbers.
Thanks for joining us to learn more about the issue of infant mortality in our area. Thanks for watching WNIN Newsmakers.